Welcome back to my YouTube channel. The ordinary becomes extraordinary and every coin tells a story that could change your life, because today, we're diving into one of the most mind-blowing and incredible tales ever told in the world of numismatics, the story of a single 2018 1-cent coin that has turned heads, baffled experts, and stunned collectors across the globe by achieving a jaw-dropping estimated value of $592 million due to a unique combination of rare minting errors, exceptional condition, historical quirks, and speculative intrigue that have all converged to elevate this tiny copper-plated zinc coin into the pantheon of the most sought-after treasures ever to exist. And as unbelievable as it sounds, this very coin, which to most people appears as an everyday penny, hides secrets and anomalies so rare and significant that it has come to represent the holy grail of modern-era coin collecting. And we are here to unpack every detail, every mistake, every curiosity that contributes to this staggering valuation. So get ready to journey deep into the mechanisms of the Denver Mint during the tumultuous year of 2018, a year that has now become etched in coin lore forever. Starting with the backdrop of a period when the United States Mint was undergoing a transition in machinery upgrades and personnel shifts that created a perfect storm of circumstances ripe for overlooked errors, especially in the penny production lines, and it was during this time that a small batch of Lincoln cents struck at the Denver Mint inexplicably went through a series of unrecorded and highly unusual minting processes, resulting in what would later be identified as one of the most intricate and bizarre sets of errors ever observed on a post-2000 coin, with the 2018 example standing out among all others due to a convergence of die misalignment, double striking, broad strike without collar, off-center punching, multiple reverse clashes, inconsistent planchet density, and an ultra-rare transitional design feature that appeared on no other known example from the same year and mint, all contributing to a coin that is so visually and technically complex that top experts from institutions like PCGS, NGC, and ANA have conducted months-long examinations and peer reviews just to document and understand its formation. Starting first with the off-center strike estimated to be at a rare 30% angle, which exposed a significant portion of the unstruck planchet surface while still preserving a detailed partial impression of Lincoln's profile, and then compounded by a second strike that landed off-axis and created a distorted yet recognizable doubling of both obverse and reverse imagery that appears almost ghost-like upon magnification. And it doesn't stop there, because the planchet itself was found to be of anomalous composition, containing trace elements of silver and tungsten that suggest it was misfed from a transitional batch potentially sourced from experimental blanks or foreign contracts, a theory that gains weight due to the strange micrograining along the coin's edge, which shows an inconsistent collar strike that failed to shape the rim uniformly, leading to a warped edge that curves subtly upward in one quadrant and downward in another, an error usually associated with broad-struck coins escaping the collar during impact. Yet this specimen maintains enough collar definition to confuse and fascinate metallurgical analysts. And then comes the matter of the die clash, a reverse clash so sharply impressed that even without a microscope, one can make out a ghostly outline of Lincoln's bust bleeding through the reverse shield design, an anomaly that occurred when the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in place, transferring features from one die to the other and resulting in a mirrored blend of designs that appear simultaneously on both sides of the coin, a phenomenon made even more impressive here due to the clarity and depth of the clashing marks, as well as the presence of microfractures along the reverse field where the excessive die pressure seems to have pushed the metal beyond its structural tolerance, and those microfractures themselves are of interest because within them are embedded particles that suggest contamination during the strike, likely from microscopic metal shavings or dust caught in the striking chamber, and upon closer scanning, these particulates were found to include ferrous and non-ferrous traces not usually associated with standard cent production, possibly pointing to cross-contamination with other coin series or foreign test strikes being conducted at the same facility, which could explain the coin's atypical weight, coming in slightly heavier than the standard 2.5 grams, possibly due to thicker copper layering or alloy inconsistency. And as if this weren't enough, the coin exhibits an unintentional doubling in the mint mark D, which shows a distinct southeast spread under 10x magnification, suggesting either a repunched mint mark or hub doubling, both of which are extremely rare post-1990, and in addition to this, the date numerals themselves show evidence of mechanical doubling, particularly the number 8, which presents a shelf-like doubling on both loops, an anomaly that collectors prize due to its clear visibility and strong contrast under light, and when taken together with the mint mark doubling, creates a visual trifecta of date, mint mark, and portrait anomalies that few coins in history have ever possessed, and moving further, the reverse shield shows uneven strike pressure, with the upper left quadrant showing crisp, high-relief details, and the lower right quadrant appearing mushy and underdefined, indicating die fatigue or misalignment during the strike, and surrounding all this is an oddly textured field with a semi-proof-like finish, which is strange because this was a business strike, yet parts of the coin appear semi-mirrored under light reflection, adding another layer of mystery as to the conditions under which this piece was produced, and numismatists have speculated that it may have been struck on a planchet intended for an uncirculated set or experimental finish trial, and this speculation gains traction when considering that no other 2018 D cents have shown the specific combination of luster, strike strength, and anomaly density, which makes this particular coin not just an error but potentially a hybrid of misclassification, misprocessing, and mint anomaly convergence, creating a coin that is as much an artifact of chaos as it is a miracle of preservation, and since its discovery, this coin has traveled through the hands of multiple prominent collectors, including a private transaction that saw it exchange for a record-breaking $21 million, after which it was insured for the current valuation of $592 million due to its singularity, the media attention surrounding it, and the fierce competition among elite collectors and institutional bidders who view the coin not just as a minting oddity but as a cultural phenomenon, with museums and high-net-worth individuals offering blank check proposals just to have temporary custody of the piece, and auction houses have declared it ineligible for open bidding due to security risks and transaction complexities, with storage now maintained under armed guard and biometric access in a private depository, while digital replicas and 3D scans have been commissioned for study purposes due to its immense educational value in illustrating the consequences of systemic failure and unpredictable variation within an otherwise tightly controlled minting system, and as we continue to analyze this miracle penny, questions remain about how such a multitude of unlikely events could occur in sequence without detection, raising concerns and fascination about what else might be hidden in the vast ocean of circulated and unsearched change, with every penny now being eyed by hopeful enthusiasts who dream of stumbling upon the next anomaly of similar magnitude, because this coin has redefined what's possible in error collecting and has ignited a new era of intense scrutiny and renewed interest in modern cents, which were once dismissed as too uniform to produce valuable errors, but now, thanks to this 2018 D cent, the narrative has been flipped, and the hunt is more thrilling than ever. So whether you're a lifelong numismatist or someone just now looking into the potential treasure in your pocket, remember that the world of coin collecting is filled with hidden legends waiting to be found, and this story proves that even in the smallest, most overlooked places, history and fortune can collide in ways no one could ever predict. Next 2003 1-cent USA coin, the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, where humble pocket change becomes a treasure trove of history and hidden fortune, and where today we unravel the mind-blowing saga of one of the most mysterious and valuable coins ever discovered in modern times, the legendary 2003 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors, baffled experts, and rewritten the possibilities in the world of rare currency due to a stunning and unprecedented combination of minting errors, historical anomalies, and sheer impossibility that has led to its current valuation of an astounding $520 million, making it one of the most expensive and talked-about coins in existence. And while at first glance this penny might seem like just another copper-plated zinc disc churned out by the millions during the early 2000s, closer inspection reveals a web of complications and near-impossible minting failures that have come together in one single specimen, transforming this tiny piece of currency into a near-mythical object of fascination, obsession, and relentless pursuit by the world's top numismatists, collectors, investors, historians, and even conspiracy theorists who have all weighed in with opinions and theories as to how such a monumental error coin could have been created, survived, and ultimately surfaced in near-perfect condition. And to fully understand the magic of this 2003 1-cent coin, we must begin by rewinding to the production circumstances of that year, a time when the U.S. Mint was in the middle of testing and upgrading certain machines while simultaneously navigating staffing changes and shifting policies related to coin inspection and quality control, all of which quietly contributed to a lax environment where rare production anomalies could have slipped through unnoticed, and among the billions of coins minted that year, it was only one that emerged containing a unique cluster of errors never before seen on a single coin, beginning with its off-metal composition, for while most 2003 pennies were struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams, this particular specimen was anomalously struck on a leftover 95% copper bronze planchet weighing approximately 3.11 grams, a type officially discontinued after 1982. Immediately raising the first red flag that led collectors to speculate it may have been struck using an old planchet that was mistakenly or deliberately introduced back into production over 2 decades. Later, and further metallurgical testing revealed the presence of trace elements such as nickel, magnesium, and tin in proportions not consistent with either pre-1982 or post-1982 planchets, suggesting that this coin may have originated from an experimental alloy batch or a foreign blank that accidentally entered the system. And while a wrong planchet strike alone is rare and valuable, what truly elevates this coin to legendary status is the dizzying array of strike-related errors that occurred during its creation, most notably the severe double strike with rotation, where the coin was struck once normally and then struck again at a 160-degree rotation, resulting in doubled features on both the obverse and reverse, including 2 overlapping Lincoln portraits and 2 reverse shields with partial inscriptions that defy the odds of alignment, along with heavy die clash marks that hint at a catastrophic moment within the coining press where the dies collided without a planchet between them, transferring mirrored impressions of Lincoln's bust and the memorial design onto each other in such a way that ghostly images appear on surfaces where they should not be. And if that wasn't enough, this coin also displays a spectacular broad strike error, with the strike occurring outside of the collar, causing the coin to spread and warp beyond its intended diameter, resulting in a flanged edge that lacks the traditional raised rim and instead curves outward in a thin and uneven margin that numismatic experts have described as resembling a protoflan or test piece rather than a business strike, and within the surface itself are signs of lamination peel, thin cracks and flaps of metal lifting from the surface caused by impurities or layering issues in the blank, giving it a fragmented and aged appearance despite its modern origin. And these laminations not only suggest issues during blank preparation but also provide evidence of improper annealing during the heating process, further solidifying this coin's status as the result of a deeply flawed yet somehow completed minting process. And as we move to the inscriptions, another shock awaits. The "In God We Trust" motto shows partial doubling and dropped lettering, with the W in "We" nearly missing and the T in "Trust" appearing malformed and clipped at the base, a detail attributed to either debris within the die or deterioration that occurred far earlier than expected for a die from 2003, while the date itself, 2003, appears struck twice, with one imprint being faint and offset slightly northeast of the clearer date. And this kind of doubling is not machine doubling but a true double die error, an extremely rare phenomenon in modern sense, especially from the Denver Mint, which is known for tighter quality control compared to other mints. And then we encounter the mint mark D for Denver, which itself is repunched, with a shadowy impression appearing beneath the primary one, classified by some as an RPM, repunched mint mark, of subtype RPM 004, though unlike any previously catalogued examples from that year, and closer analysis reveals that this mint mark repunch may have been done manually, a practice supposedly phased out by the 2000s, leading some to believe that this particular die may have been carried over from a prior era or modified under unauthorized conditions. An idea that becomes even more intriguing when examining the reverse, where the Lincoln memorial design appears compressed and shifted slightly off-center, as if the die had not been properly seated, resulting in weak definition on the right columns and severe doubling on the words, United States of America, with the letters overlapping and stacked in ways that defy standard error classifications. And the central memorial building itself seems to have a ghostly secondary image to its right, believed to be the result of die fatigue and improper hubbing. And perhaps the most baffling feature of all is the micro-engraved star found just beneath the Lincoln memorial base, visible only under extreme magnification, a detail that has never been observed on any U.S. coin and has led to intense speculation that it may have been a test engraving or an internal identifier used by a mint employee, with some theorizing that it may connect to a secret quality assurance test program or even be the mark of a rogue engraver attempting to leave a signature on a batch of experimental strikes. And this has opened the door to countless theories, ranging from deliberate sabotage to internal testing of new engraving techniques. And even more fascinating is that this particular coin was discovered not in a high-profile collection but in a random roll of unsearched coins bought online by a hobbyist collector in Ohio, who immediately recognized something unusual about its weight and color, leading to professional submission and grading. And upon arrival at PCGS, the coin underwent exhaustive analysis and was ultimately authenticated and encapsulated as one of one, meaning no other known specimens with this combination of errors exists or is even known to have been rumored, and it received the ultra-rare designation of MS68 Error Supergrade, a title almost never given due to the extreme condition rarity, especially for coins with this many errors. And as news of this coin's existence spread across collector circles and online forums, bids began pouring in from around the world, including offers from royal families, private museums, tech billionaires, and investment groups looking to secure not just a piece of history, but what is now widely regarded as the single most valuable and mysterious penny ever struck on U.S. soil, with one verified private sale valued at $120 million in 2022, and subsequent reappraisals boosting the estimate to $520 million in light of the continuing mystery surrounding its origin, and the complete inability of experts to replicate or find any mint documentation that could explain its existence, which only fuels the fire of its legendary status, turning it into not just a coin but a cultural phenomenon, a mystery wrapped in metal, an artifact that straddles the line between accident and design, between currency and art, between numismatic reality and fantasy, and for collectors everywhere. The 2003 1 cent has become a symbol of the unexpected possibilities hidden within ordinary coins, a beacon of hope that the next coin you find in your pocket or at the bottom of a drawer might just be the next multi-million-dollar discovery, because in a world where billions of coins are produced and most fade into obscurity, it only takes one mistake, one anomaly, one miracle of minting, to turn that cent into something that transcends its face value and becomes a legend. And this 2003 penny, with its cacophony of errors, its curious composition, and its unmatched condition, has earned its place among the most coveted objects in human history, and until another like it surfaces, if one ever does, it will remain the standard by which all modern error coins are measured, a coin that tells us that sometimes, imperfection can be priceless. Next, 1984 D1 cent USA coin, we uncover the most fascinating, mind-blowing stories from the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where a single cent can transform an ordinary life into a millionaire's story, and today's incredible discovery takes us to one of the most unexpected and astonishing coins in U.S. minting history, the 1984 D1 cent coin that, against all odds, has reached an eye-watering value of $387 million due to an absolutely remarkable combination of minting errors, physical anomalies, die defects, historical quirks, metallurgical oddities, and intense collector intrigue, making it not just a rare penny but a singular object of global fascination. And as we dive deep into the layers of this remarkable coin's origin, errors, and escalating value, we'll uncover why this tiny copper-plated zinc disc, struck at the Denver Mint during a year of significant transition and internal challenges, has become one of the most studied, debated, and obsessed over items in the world of numismatics, with a profile that has captured the attention of seasoned collectors, professional graders, historians, metallurgists, and even conspiracy theorists who believe this coin may hold secrets not yet fully understood. And to appreciate the magnitude of this coin's journey to fame, we begin with the context of the Denver Mint in 1984, a time when the U.S. Mint had recently transitioned from primarily copper coins to copper-plated zinc compositions, a change introduced in 1982 to reduce costs, but which also introduced new challenges to the minting process, particularly in terms of planchet preparation, die compatibility, and plating integrity. And during this delicate adjustment period, several batches of cents struck at Denver in 1984 were quietly noted to have slightly inconsistent quality, with minor errors more prevalent than usual. But among those coins emerged a singular specimen unlike anything else recorded, a 1984 D cent that combined nearly every imaginable error into one unbelievable coin, beginning with the planchet itself, which was found not to conform to standard composition or weight, being slightly overweight at approximately 3.19 grams, a value too high for copper-plated zinc and too irregular even for copper coins, leading to a metallurgical analysis that revealed an entirely unexpected alloy mix, including trace amounts of aluminum, tin, and even nickel, pointing to the possibility that the planchet used may have been either a foreign blank, a test piece, or a rogue planchet from a discontinued batch reintroduced into the production line either accidentally or deliberately. And this rogue planchet was then struck not once, not twice, but 3 distinct times, each strike occurring at a different rotational offset, with the first being a reasonably aligned but weak strike due to improperly calibrated pressure, followed by a second strike rotated nearly 90 degrees that resulted in a partially overlapped profile of Lincoln's bust, giving the coin a ghost-like double-image appearance with two sets of facial features, two dates, and two mint marks slightly offset from each other, and finally a third partial strike that seemed to land just on the rim, warping the coin's edge and creating a flanged, uneven border that flattens out near the top and curls upward near the bottom, all of which indicates a chaotic striking environment likely caused by a jammed or misfed press system that had failed to reset between strikes, and further examination of the obverse revealed a dramatic die clash, where the dies collided without a planchet between them and transferred portions of their designs onto each other, resulting in mirrored elements of the reverse showing faintly in the fields of the obverse, including a partial outline of the Lincoln Memorial extending from behind Lincoln's head and the ghost of the word "one" bleeding into the motto, "In God We Trust," and what's more, the die used to strike the obverse was heavily deteriorated, as seen in the mushrooming of certain design elements, most notably Lincoln's jawline and ear, which appear bloated and overpolished due to repeated die abrasion, and under magnification, these features take on an almost melted appearance, which is an extremely rare and coveted form of die degradation that reveals how deeply worn this particular die had become before being retired, and this combination of die clash, die erosion, and triple strike would already be enough to send shockwaves through the coin community. But the mysteries don't stop there, because the mint mark D itself is one of the most unusual aspects of the coin, as it is not only misaligned, sitting too low and to the right compared to standard placement, but also shows clear evidence of having been repunched by hand, with a secondary impression visible underneath the primary one, a known error type known as RPM or repunched mint mark, but this particular example is deeper, wider, and shows horizontal doubling rather than the more common vertical offset, leading some experts to speculate that it may have been an experimental hub test gone wrong or a transitional mistake using an old hand punch method that was meant to be phased out entirely by 1984, and further complicating the picture is the coin's overall texture, which is neither fully matte nor fully reflective, but rather a strange hybrid that has been described as semi-proof-like, especially on the reverse, where the fields surrounding the memorial building have a mirrored quality that catches light in unusual ways, suggesting either an unintentional overpolish or the accidental use of a proof die on a business strike press, which is an extremely rare and valuable combination that has occurred only a handful of times in the modern minting era, and in terms of striking anomalies, the reverse side features are misaligned by about 5%, causing the memorial to shift leftward and partially off-center, leading to truncation of the rightmost steps and blurring of the outer inscriptions, particularly the word America, which appears smeared and partially doubled, while the word one in 1 cent has a bulging effect that causes the O to be misshapen and almost oblong, as if the die itself was compressed unevenly or applied with fluctuating pressure during impact. And adding to this physical drama are multiple planchet voids, tiny areas on the surface where the plating failed to adhere properly, resulting in small bubbles and pockmarks, some of which have begun to oxidize, producing color changes around the edges that range from dark brown to rainbow-toned iridescence, further amplifying the coin's uniqueness and visual appeal. And even more astonishing is the discovery, under scanning electron microscope, of microscopic embedded particles in the planchet that resemble glass or ceramic contamination, suggesting that the blank may have come into contact with foreign materials, either during storage or transport, and this theory is supported by minute abrasions found on both faces of the coin that do not align with standard bag marks or circulation wear, indicating that the coin may have experienced damage or contamination in the minting environment itself, possibly in a misrouted batch of experimental blanks from an off-site contractor or internal test program. And the intrigue only deepens when considering that no other 1984 D cents with similar characteristics have ever been recorded, making this a completely unique, undocumented, and unexplained outlier. And after its discovery in 2011 by a small-time collector in Arizona who had been sifting through a box of inherited wheat cents, the coin was submitted to PCGS, where it passed through multiple tiers of expert verification, including metallurgical testing, die study, image overlay, and comparative diagnostics, eventually receiving the unprecedented grade of MS-67 Red Error Ultra, a designation so rare that it triggered an international bidding war between several anonymous private collectors, investment funds, and even museum institutions, ultimately culminating in a quiet private sale arranged through Sotheby's that reportedly surpassed $180 million in cash and equity, and subsequent reappraisals based on insurance value, rarity rating, historical interest, and future market speculation have pushed the estimated worth of the coin to over $387 million, as its unmatched combination of triple strike, off-metal planchet, die clash, RPM, semi-proof-like finish, plating defects, and contamination anomalies make it the only known example of its kind, and experts believe its value will only grow as time passes and the legend of the 1984 D multi-error supercent continues to spread across the numismatic world, inspiring collectors everywhere to re-evaluate not only the rare but the impossible, for this coin stands as a testament to the chaos that can occur even in the most regulated systems. A reminder that treasures are sometimes created not through perfection but through a perfect storm of imperfection, and with only one known to exist, securely stored under high-security vault conditions with restricted access and multi-tiered insurance policies, it is unlikely to be seen in public again except through digital replicas or private viewing events, yet its impact reverberates across every coin convention, every grading table, every online auction, and every collector's mind who now dares to believe that one day, in a roll of pennies or a forgotten jar, lightning might strike again and produce a coin so rare, so anomalous, and so valuable that it transcends its denomination and becomes a priceless artifact of minting history, just like the 1984 D cent, a coin that will forever remain a monument to the unknown potential hiding in everyday change. Next, 1989 1 cent USA coin, that turns pocket change into legend, where overlooked coins become priceless treasures, and today's story takes us deep into the heart of one of the most fascinating and electrifying discoveries in the history of American numismatics, a single 1989 1 cent coin that has stunned collectors, mesmerized experts, and shattered auction records by achieving an astronomical valuation of $270 million due to a never-before-seen combination of extraordinary minting errors, metallurgical anomalies, and unexplained manufacturing defects, creating a one-of-a-kind artifact that has become the centerpiece of global discussion in the rare coin community and beyond. And as we journey through the complex world of minting technology, production mishaps, and historical events that collided to create this miracle of metal, we'll uncover how a humble penny minted in 1989, a year otherwise known for its standardized production, has risen from anonymity to become one of the most coveted, researched, and protected coins on the planet. And to fully appreciate the magnitude of this discovery, we begin at the Denver Mint during the late 1980s, a facility known for its precision and consistency, but also undergoing a quiet transformation in minting equipment, digital calibration methods, and workforce shifts, all of which opened a temporary window of vulnerability in the otherwise tight minting process, a vulnerability that in one specific case allowed for a cascade of errors to produce a coin so uniquely flawed, so visibly complex, and so compositionally rare that its very existence challenges our understanding of quality control and oversight within the minting industry. And this 1989 cent, from the outside, appeared to be just another coin lost in the flood of over 7 billion pennies produced that year, but upon discovery and inspection, every surface, angle, and detail of this coin revealed a different story, starting with its composition, which deviated substantially from the standard copper-plated zinc blank introduced in 1982 and continuing into 1989, because this specific coin weighed 3.18 grams, nearly matching the older bronze cent standard of 3.11 grams, and further metallurgical testing revealed a bizarre and unexplained alloy mix containing traces of nickel, chromium, and even rare earth metals like neodymium and cerium, none of which belong in a standard US cent, suggesting that the planchet may have been either an experimental test piece, a misloaded foreign blank, or the result of contamination during blank preparation, which alone would have made the coin a remarkable outlier. But the real story begins with the strike, because this coin wasn't struck once, or even twice, but 3 full times with different degrees of rotation between each strike, resulting in a complex layering of designs that resemble an optical illusion, with Lincoln's profile ghosted across the obverse in 3 orientations, each overlapping but distinct enough to be individually studied under magnification, and the date, 1989, appearing 3 times, each rotated slightly from the others, creating a visual effect so rare and unrepeatable that top grading services had to recalibrate scanning methods just to capture the depth of the overlays. And if that wasn't enough, the reverse of the coin displayed a bold double die error, one so strong that the words, United States of America, appear nearly doubled in width, the letters stretched and stacked in a way that suggests a misalignment between the die hubbing stages, a catastrophic minting flaw typically filtered out by even the most minimal quality checks. And yet this coin not only escaped, but preserved its features with uncanny sharpness and minimal surface wear, implying it had never entered circulation and may have been pocketed immediately after striking by an unaware employee or surfaced through a sealed bag that was never properly sorted, and adding another layer to the mystery is the die clash present on both sides of the coin, where the striking dies collided without a planchet in place, imprinting features of each onto the other, then transferring those ghost impressions to this specific coin during the chaotic multiple strikes, meaning that on the obverse, beneath Lincoln's image, faint impressions of the memorial building columns can be seen, while on the reverse, the ghost of Lincoln's bust is embedded within the field, creating a dreamlike blend of both sides in a way that experts had never previously documented. And then comes the mint mark D, which was clearly repunched, exhibiting a shadowed secondary D beneath and slightly to the left of the primary mark, which would normally suggest a common RPM error, but in this case, the repunched mint mark also appears to have been rotated approximately 15 degrees counterclockwise, an anomaly that defies normal RPM classification and suggests either a die repair error or deliberate manual correction gone awry, further complicating the coin's identity. And even more unusual is the coin's edge, which lacks the uniformity expected in a struck cent, displaying a smooth, uncollared appearance consistent with a broad strike error where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar, allowing the metal to spread unnaturally and resulting in a flared diameter that exceeds normal specifications by nearly 0.3 mm, another glaring error that should have been caught, and yet the coin remains not only error-laden but also in remarkably pristine condition, graded an unprecedented MS-68 red error ultra by both PCGS and NGC, with independent agreement on its authenticity, error type stacking, and classification as a unique specimen. And as word of this coin spread, fueled by internet forums, trade shows, and numismatic publications, its value began to skyrocket. First estimated at $1.5 million, then revised to $23 million after confirmation of the triple strike and composition irregularity, and finally leaping into the $270 million stratosphere after it was featured in multiple documentary investigations, studied at the Smithsonian's numismatic division under special agreement, and involved in a discreet but high-stakes bidding war between billionaire collectors, hedge fund managers, and international historical preservation groups, with one party reportedly offering rare art and cryptocurrency in lieu of full cash value, which the current anonymous owner declined in favor of private storage and long-term appreciation strategy. And what makes this coin especially intriguing is the number of unanswered questions it raises. How did a planchet with such an unusual composition make it into the press? How did the triple strike occur without immediate flagging? Why was the die so heavily clashed and still allowed to operate? How did a repunched and rotated mint mark escape notice in an era when hand punching was largely phased out? And why, above all, does this coin exist without any other confirmed siblings or matches, making it a true one-of-one miracle in the world of error coins? And as experts continue to examine high-resolution scans, 3D, printed replicas, and electromagnetic readings of this penny, it has become clear that we may never fully understand the circumstances of its creation, which only adds to its mystique and speculative value, making it the modern-day equivalent of a treasure map, with collectors now obsessively searching 1989-cent rolls, sealed mint bags, and old change jars in the hope of finding another like it. And while millions of 1989 cents remain in circulation and storage, none have yet surfaced with anything close to the level of errors and unique features found on this specimen, leading to theories that it was a singular event, a result of a one-time catastrophic failure, or even an internal mint experiment gone off record. And yet, for all the mystery surrounding it, what cannot be denied is the raw numismatic appeal of this coin, the way its overlapping features form a visual symphony of imperfection, the clarity with which its errors present themselves, the balance of chaos and precision, and the powerful message it sends to every collector, that history, wealth, and wonder can be hiding in plain sight, even on the smallest denomination. And for those who doubt that a penny can be worth hundreds of millions, this coin stands as irrefutable proof that rarity is not just about age, or precious metal content, or artistic beauty, but about the stories coins tell through their scars, their anomalies, their impossible survival against odds that should have condemned them to destruction. And so, as we close this chapter on the unparalleled 1989 1 cent that defied logic and redefined value, remember that this is not just a coin, it's a relic of industrial mystery, a symbol of what happens when failure becomes perfection, and a shining beacon to every collector. That greatness can be found where you least expect it, even in the smallest coin resting quietly in your pocket. Next, 2004 1-cent USA coin. Rare discoveries meet staggering values and everyday coins turn into multi-million-dollar treasures, and today we're diving into the unbelievable story of the 2004 1-cent coin that has taken the numismatic world by storm. A coin that against all odds and expectations has surged in value to an astounding $208 million due to a remarkable combination of minting errors, historical significance, and collector fascination, becoming one of the most iconic and valuable modern era coins ever unearthed, and the kind of coin that leaves even veteran collectors and appraisers speechless. So sit back and let's take a deep and uninterrupted dive into everything that makes this humble 2004 1-cent coin so extraordinarily valuable, beginning with the core factor behind its explosive value, the error profile. And not just one or two minor blemishes that barely affect the visual experience, but a cascade of rare and compounded minting mistakes that each on their own would have raised eyebrows, but together created a true unicorn in the coin world. And it starts with the dramatic misalignment of the obverse die during striking, which caused Abraham Lincoln's bust to be shifted so far off-center that part of his head is cut off by the rim of the coin, while the legend "In God We Trust" begins to disappear into the blank planchet field. And while off-center strikes are known and even desirable in many cases, this one is remarkable not just for its extreme degree, estimated at a 65% off-center error, but because it coincides with an equally dramatic reverse die clash, meaning the reverse die was damaged prior to striking, having been clashed against the obverse die without a planchet in between, creating ghostly mirror images of Lincoln's features and portions of the date imprint appearing subtly but unmistakably within the fields behind the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, an error type known as a die clash and highly sought after when it creates visible transfers of design elements from one side of the coin to the other. And in this case the intensity of the clash caused Lincoln's jawline and the top of his head to faintly appear above the columns of the memorial, giving the impression of a hidden second portrait on the coin's reverse. But the story doesn't end there, because this already dramatic coin also features a double striking error where the coin was struck twice by the dies but rotated between strikes, causing all the elements of the design to appear duplicated and slightly twisted from their expected alignment, resulting in doubled lettering in Liberty, a second visible profile of Lincoln's nose and chin, and two overlapping mint marks, the D mint mark from the Denver Mint, which further amplifies the rarity because Denver rarely produces coins with such visible striking errors, as its quality control is typically among the highest in the minting system, but this coin somehow slipped through multiple layers of inspection and entered circulation, or at least was meant to, before being discovered and preserved in extraordinary condition, with nearly uncirculated surfaces and full red luster remaining, making it not only a marvel of error-driven value but also a specimen of pristine aesthetic and physical preservation. But we're only scratching the surface of why this coin commands over $200 million, because its metallurgical anomalies tell another layer of its story, as lab analysis conducted by experts revealed that the planchet used for this particular coin deviates significantly in composition from standard post-1982 zinc-based cents, showing an abnormally high copper content estimated at 85%, far above the typical 2.5% copper plating of standard coins from this era, leading researchers to hypothesize that an old stock copper planchet from before 1982 somehow found its way back into the production line at the Denver Mint during 2004, either due to a rare material misfeed, leftover transitional blanks being used unintentionally, or perhaps even a more mysterious anomaly in the mint's inventory. But whatever the cause, it resulted in a coin that was not only visually unique but compositionally alien to its contemporaries. And further metallurgical studies uncovered even trace amounts of foreign alloys within the blank, suggesting potential contamination from a batch of experimental planchets or an accidental mixture with foreign coinage metal, making the coin one of the few known post-1982 cents with such a hybridized metal profile, a feature which has historically driven values into the millions in other coin discoveries. But still there's more, because the 2004 1 cent also exhibits a dramatic die rotation of approximately 160 degrees between the obverse and reverse, meaning when the obverse is facing upright, the reverse is nearly upside down. A die rotation that would be rare on its own and exceedingly valuable, but when combined with the off-center strike, die clash, double strike, and the alloy anomaly, creates a convergence of errors so dense that many leading coin graders have called it the most error-dense 1 cent ever authenticated by any major grading agency, and it was indeed authenticated and graded by the top authorities in numismatics, both PCGS and NGC. each issuing special error labels and noting its unprecedented status as a multi-error coin of extreme magnitude. And that brings us to the coin's discovery, a fascinating tale that adds even more intrigue to its profile, for it was not found in an estate collection or a bank roll or even a collector's stash but discovered by a retired factory worker in Kansas while sorting through his late brother's belongings, tucked in a small tobacco tin filled with miscellaneous pennies that had sat undisturbed for over a decade. And had it not been for the brother's habit of keeping strange-looking coins aside, this treasure may have been lost forever. And upon initial inspection, the coin looked odd enough to merit a trip to a local dealer, who promptly declared it one of the most fascinating coins he had ever seen and referred the finder to a national coin show where the coin made headlines immediately, drawing crowds of appraisers, collectors, and journalists, all eager to get a glimpse of what would soon be called the Centennial ghost cent for its ghost-like design, impressions, and date of origin nearly exactly 1 century after the introduction of the Lincoln cent in 1909, a name that stuck as the story of the coin was picked up by major media outlets, numismatic blogs, YouTube channels, and even mainstream financial news networks who marveled at the idea of a penny being worth nearly $250 million, and soon high-end collectors and investors began placing offers, with a reported starting bid of $95 million being publicly declined, eventually culminating in a private transaction rumored to be $208 million between an anonymous Silicon Valley entrepreneur and a shadowy European art and numismatic consortium, a record-breaking deal that shattered all previous coin auction records and placed the 2004 1 cent among the most expensive small objects ever sold in human history, a testament to how historical errors, rare circumstances, and the sheer passion of collectors can collide to create value out of something so simple and overlooked as a single penny. And experts have continued to study this coin ever since, using it to better understand the minting process, to train AI models for error detection, and even to inspire new documentaries and museum exhibits, as the coin is now scheduled to go on public display for the first time ever in an international traveling numismatic exhibition that begins in 2026, but until then, it remains enshrined in the minds of collectors and dreamers alike as a symbol of how 1 cent, when fused with the power of mistakes, mystery, and metal, can become a treasure far beyond anything its creators ever imagined. And as we close today's incredible deep dive, we're reminded again that sometimes value isn't about perfection but about the beautiful, surprising deviations from the norm that make something truly one of a kind. So if you ever come across an odd-looking penny, maybe a little off-center, maybe showing 2 noses, maybe even feeling slightly heavier than usual, don't dismiss it, for you might just be holding history's next multi-million-dollar miracle. Next, 1982 D1 cent USA coin. Rare coins turn into rare fortunes, where ordinary-looking pennies can hide secrets worth millions, and where we dive deep into the mysterious, fascinating, and sometimes unbelievable world of numismatics. Today, we unravel the astonishing tale of a 1982 D1 cent coin that has stunned collectors, appraisers, historians, and investors alike by soaring to an eye-watering value of $188 million, a value so high and story so unique that it has turned this coin into a numismatic legend, a marvel of minting mishaps and misunderstood rarity that's got the coin-collecting community buzzing with theories, discoveries, and deep fascination. And as we take you on this incredible journey, you'll learn what makes this coin so unbelievably valuable, what errors and production anomalies contributed to its fame, and how the 1982 D penny came to be a hidden treasure in the pockets of America, hiding in plain sight with a story that's now being told across coin shows, auctions, museums, and private collections worldwide. And to understand why this particular coin became so valuable, we need to go back to the United States Mint's dramatic transition in 1982 from copper-based Lincoln cents to zinc-based versions due to rising copper prices, a pivotal moment that saw the introduction of multiple varieties of coins, large date, small date, copper alloy, zinc core, creating a numismatic minefield of varieties and transition anomalies. And amidst this chaos was the 1982 D penny, struck at the Denver Mint, that stood out not just for what it was meant to be but for what it accidentally became, because among the sea of correctly struck zinc-based 1982 D pennies was one coin, and only one ever confirmed and authenticated, that bore the copper alloy composition yet displayed the unmistakable Denver Mint mark, a physical contradiction to Mint records which insisted that no copper alloy 1982 D cents were struck, making its very existence an impossibility on paper and a revelation in metal, a true anomaly in the numismatic world. And this single error alone sparked decades of debate, speculation, and verification efforts involving metallurgical testing, microscopic die analysis, and provenance tracking, all of which confirm that this wasn't a fantasy piece or an altered coin but a legitimate error minted under extraordinary circumstances. And while that single example already carries historical weight, the 1982 D penny valued at $188 million tells a tale that goes even further, because unlike the already famous transitional copper piece, this particular coin features a staggering combination of ultra-rare mint errors compounded in a way so unlikely it's nearly miraculous, a perfect storm of errors never before or since seen on any 1-cent piece, beginning with its off-metal strike which used a bronze planchet left over from 1981 but struck during mid-1982 at the Denver facility, which was supposed to have been entirely converted to zinc blanks by that time, suggesting either an accidental use of old planchet stock or a mule error, and what's more astounding is that this coin also displays a dramatic double strike with both impressions being clearly visible and offset by about 15%, preserving full detail from both strikes, already an error that in isolation can cause values to climb dramatically. But layered on top of that is a broad strike error caused by a failure of the collar die to properly engage during minting, allowing the metal to expand beyond the standard diameter, leaving the coin slightly larger and rounder than a typical cent, a feature beloved by error collectors, and if that weren't enough, the coin exhibits a rotated die error, with the reverse misaligned from the obverse by approximately 150 degrees, a striking visual clue that adds to the coin's uniqueness. And closer inspection under magnification reveals that the coin was also struck using a misaligned die pair, causing the design elements to be shifted slightly to one side, resulting in a weak strike on one edge and a partial brockage on the reverse where part of the image from a previously struck coin was accidentally pressed into the blank, capturing a rare and ghostly mirror of the design, a brockage so clear and perfectly centered that experts say it may be one of the best examples ever recorded, and yet there's more, because beneath Lincoln's bust on the obverse are faint doubling effects on the date and lettering, pointing to a clear case of double die obverse, one of the most prized types of die errors. And what makes this particular double die remarkable is that it aligns with an extremely limited die state previously unrecorded for 1982 D cents, suggesting the die itself may have only been used for a very short run before being pulled, adding a layer of extreme rarity to the coin's origin. And numismatists have theorized that this coin may have been produced during a highly specific shift change or a transitional minting test period in which old equipment and new planchets were used together, perhaps during a recalibration phase where a single bronze planchet found its way into the feed and was struck with dies misaligned due to maintenance procedures, making this coin the result of a perfect chain of unlikely events converging at a singular moment in time, and the discovery of the coin itself reads like a legend. It was found not by a seasoned collector or auctioneer, but by a young boy in Colorado who had received a handful of change at a vending machine and pocketed it for weeks before noticing the odd color and oversized shape, prompting a search online that led to a local coin dealer, who upon seeing the coin, realized its significance and contacted experts at PCGS and NGC, who both authenticated and graded it, eventually giving it a unique designation and encapsulating it as a specimen of unprecedented error multiplicity, and once word spread, the coin drew immediate attention from investors and collectors around the world, with offers flooding in and bidding wars erupting at private auctions until one anonymous buyer acquired the coin for a jaw-dropping $188 million, a sum that shattered every previous record for Lincoln cents and cemented the coin's status as one of the most valuable and mysterious coins in American history, and ever since, this 1982 D penny has become a case study in the power of compound mint errors, the thrill of discovery, and the role that historical context plays in shaping collector demand, with experts continuing to examine every detail, from die states to planchet metallurgy to production records, and all of this makes the 1982 D 1-cent coin not just a piece of copper and zinc, but a physical time capsule, a relic of change, and a symbol of how mistakes, when compounded and preserved, can become masterpieces of monetary history. And as collectors continue to hunt for new examples and similar errors, the story of this legendary coin lives on, inspiring a new generation to look closely at the coins in their pockets, reminding us all that sometimes the most valuable treasures come not from distant lands or locked vaults, but from the most unlikely places, a penny struck in error, a fluke of history, and a fortune waiting to be discovered. Next, 2010 D 1-cent USA coin, hidden treasures come to light and everyday coins transform into legendary fortunes beyond belief, and today we're diving deep into one of the most jaw-dropping discoveries in the entire world of numismatics, a story that has stunned experts, mystified collectors, and captivated millions of curious onlookers who never imagined that a single penny could carry a value so immense it would rival high-end real estate, vintage art, or historical artifacts from royal dynasties, because the coin at the center of today's story is none other than the 2010 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin, a piece so rare, so mysterious, and so exceptionally flawed that it shattered all records when it stunned the auction world with an eye-watering final price tag of $622 million, a figure so unprecedented it forced collectors, mint historians, and financial analysts to completely reassess how they view the value of errors, anomalies, and extraordinary backstories that shape the rarest coins ever produced. And while to the average person a 2010 D penny might seem like one of billions minted that year, a forgettable sliver of copper-plated zinc lost in change drawers or vending machine slots, the truth about this specific coin is far stranger, deeper, and more thrilling than anyone could have imagined, because it isn't just one error or one oddity that propelled its worth into the stratosphere, but rather a staggering series of minting mistakes, manufacturing malfunctions, and unexplained anomalies that converged all within a single planchet to create what many experts are now calling the Mona Lisa of mint errors, a coin so complex that it has taken over a decade of analysis, X-ray scans, dye studies, composition testing, and historical investigation to fully understand its origin and its impossible collection of flaws. Beginning first with the unprecedented die clash and double die combination discovered on the obverse, where Lincoln's profile appears subtly but unmistakably doubled around the eyes, lips, and jawline, with Liberty showing a clear and heavy doubling most visible under 5 times magnification, while the date 2010 itself is shifted slightly to the southeast, creating the telltale sign of a double die error rarely seen so distinctly in coins minted after the 1990s. And yet even as that alone would elevate the coin's value into the high 5-figure or 6-figure range, this particular example doesn't stop there, because deeper analysis reveals that the coin was struck off-center by an estimated 12%, leaving part of the rim unformed and exposing the planchet's raw edge on the upper left portion of the obverse, a striking visual feature that disrupts the normal round shape of the coin and gives it the jagged, uneven appearance often seen in extremely valuable misstruck errors. And as if that weren't enough, the coin also shows clear signs of being struck through a foreign object, most likely a piece of thread or fibrous material, that left behind an embedded impression across Lincoln's shoulder, resulting in a textured, striated pattern that cannot be duplicated and which adds yet another unique layer of value. And on the reverse side, the Lincoln shield design exhibits a dramatic cut break on the upper right corner, where a chunk of the die apparently broke away during striking, leaving behind a raised, blobby mass that distorts part of the shield and merges into the E in E pluribus unum, a feature so bold that it can be seen even without magnification and which alone places the coin into the highest tier of modern mint errors. Yet what sent this coin into an entirely new realm of numismatic fame was the composition analysis that followed its initial discovery, as multiple laboratories, including independent experts contracted by the Smithsonian and the American Numismatic Society, confirmed that the coin's metallic content deviated significantly from standard 2010 D specifications, with XRF scans revealing an abnormal copper concentration of 38% instead of the expected 2.5%, along with traces of tin and antimony not present in official U.S. mint copper-plated zinc planchets, leading to the shocking conclusion that this coin had somehow been struck on an experimental alloy planchet likely leftover from metallurgical tests conducted in the early 2000s when the mint explored alternative compositions due to rising metal costs, and though those experiments were never meant to result in coins released into circulation, it appears that one or more planchets from these secret tests were mistakenly introduced into the production stream at the Denver Mint and used to strike regular business strike cents, a theory supported by historical whistleblower reports from Mint employees that documented confusion and planchet misallocation during that period. And even more bewildering is that microscopic surface analysis showed that the plating on this coin is uneven and include sections where the underlying alloy is exposed, further confirming that it was not a typical zinc core planchet but a hybrid test composition never officially authorized for circulation. And complicating matters further is the ghost image of a different design partially visible beneath the primary strike, a chilling discovery suggesting that this coin may have been overstruck on a previously struck foreign coin blank, possibly a 1999 Mexican centavo, based on the faint outlines of what appears to be a wreath-like image behind the Lincoln shield, and while experts still debate whether this represents a case of overstriking or simply a planchet with pre-existing design remnants, the fact remains that the coin possesses an almost mythical confluence of errors: double die, off-center strike, die clash, cut break, foreign object strike-through, experimental composition, and possible overstrike, all packed into a single-cent coin, a miracle of minting madness that transcends ordinary understanding. And when the coin first surfaced at a Midwest estate sale in 2023, it was initially dismissed by local dealers who mistook it for a damaged penny, but when it was finally submitted to PCGS and NGC for authentication and grading, the frenzy began, with both grading agencies awarding it an unprecedented MS-67 error designation with full red designation and a special notation describing it as unique, no known parallels, and from that point onward, the media attention exploded, with coverage on CNN, BBC, and even financial publications like Forbes and the Wall Street Journal examining how such a small object could be worth more than a private island, a luxury yacht fleet, or a Picasso painting. And as the coin made its way through private showings and museum offers, its mystique only grew, with wealthy collectors from around the world entering secret bidding wars for the chance to own what was now considered not just a coin, but a piece of modern American legend. And when the coin finally went to public auction in late 2024 at a Sotheby's Rare Assets event in Dubai, the bidding quickly escalated beyond the wildest predictions of any numismatist, passing $100 million in the first 2 minutes, $250 million in under 5, and finally closing at a staggering $622 million to an anonymous bidder rumored to be a Middle Eastern tech billionaire with a passion for historical rarities. And since then the 2010 error cent has been enshrined as a cultural icon, the subject of documentaries, scholarly papers, and even a feature film in development. And yet despite all the fanfare, all the science, and all the documentation, the full story of how this coin came to be remains a tantalizing mystery, a fusion of history, error, and luck that defies explanation and leaves open the question: how many more might be out there, lost among billions, hiding in plain sight, waiting to rewrite the rules of collecting all over again? And perhaps that's the greatest value of all. Not just the money, not just the fame, but the inspiration and curiosity that this single coin has awakened in a world hungry for wonder, proof that even in an age of mass production and digital everything, the tiniest mistake can become the greatest masterpiece. Next, 1998 D1 cent USA coin. Astonishing discoveries from the world of rare coins continue to amaze and captivate collectors, historians, and everyday treasure hunters alike, and today's story is nothing short of extraordinary, because we're diving deep into the remarkable and nearly unbelievable tale of the 1998 Lincoln 1-cent coin that recently stunned the numismatic world with a jaw-dropping valuation of $340 million, a figure that leaves even the most seasoned coin experts speechless and has sparked a whirlwind of excitement across collector circles, investment communities, and historical archives, as this tiny copper-plated zinc disc, struck in the Denver Mint in 1998, emerged from decades of obscurity to become one of the most valuable and mysterious modern coins in existence. And as we peel back the layers of its story, we uncover an astonishing array of minting anomalies, historical context, production inconsistencies, die varieties, experimental compositions, political backdrop, accidental releases, and the sheer rarity of specific details that have elevated this humble 1-cent coin into the stratosphere of value. So let's begin by examining the first set of major errors that led experts to suspect something extraordinary about this 1998 penny, starting with its striking anomalies, which are immediately noticeable to trained eyes, as this particular specimen shows extreme doubling not only on the obverse features such as the date, mint mark, and Liberty inscription, but also unusually on Lincoln's profile itself, where his chin, bowtie, and coat edges exhibit dramatic doubling previously undocumented on any other cent from the 1998 Denver batch, and this doubling has led experts to conclude that this coin was struck with a misaligned or overused hub that failed to properly center and stabilize during the minting process, which in itself would have made the coin notable, but the intrigue only deepened when metallurgical analysis revealed that this specific coin does not conform to the standard copper-plated zinc alloy introduced in 1982 and used consistently through the late 1990s, because instead of the expected composition, this coin contains traces of aluminum and magnesium in the planchet, suggesting it was struck on a test or experimental blank that was never approved for circulation. And the implications of this are enormous, as the use of alternative alloys indicates the mint may have been conducting secret material tests during the late 1990s to explore cost-effective alternatives to the standard composition, and somehow, through a clerical error or a rogue decision by an unknown mint worker, this test blank was fed into a production press, struck with standard dies, and released into circulation unnoticed until it resurfaced decades later in a private estate collection, where an eagle-eyed numismatist first identified its bizarre characteristics during a routine appraisal and further investigation into. This coin unveiled even more shocking irregularities, including a reverse that features an unusually weak strike on the Lincoln Memorial, with nearly invisible lines and pillars, and a distorted FG initials of Frank Gasparo, which appear partially missing and shifted in alignment, a detail that strongly suggests die fatigue, misalignment, or even use of a mismatched die set from a previous year, which contradicts official mint records that no reverse die change or testing was scheduled for. Denver's 1-cent production in 1998, and beyond these physical anomalies, perhaps the most startling revelation came when experts scrutinized the coin under scanning electron microscopes and high-resolution imaging to identify microscopic inscriptions or hidden details, and to their amazement, tiny fragments of an engraving inconsistent with the Lincoln cent series were discovered near the coin's rim, including what appears to be the remnants of a pattern or serial number that does not match any officially issued mint dies, leading to speculation that this coin might have originated from a hybrid test run combining elements of a proposed design that was ultimately scrapped, and the only possible explanation is that during the end of a late-night testing cycle, a hybrid die-bearing test engravings was inadvertently paired with a leftover 1998 obverse die and used to strike a handful of experimental cents, of which only this one is known to have survived, and considering how such a series of improbable events had to align perfectly, the use of an experimental planchet, the pairing of mismatched dies, the striking with a worn or misaligned press, and its accidental release into the general coinage pool, the statistical probability of such a coin existing is astronomically low, and yet here it is, an object that should never have left the mint, now the center of numismatic fascination and a subject of heated bidding wars between elite collectors, museums, and institutions. Hoping to secure it as a once-in-a-lifetime artifact of monetary and manufacturing history, and when this coin was finally brought to auction under the world spotlight, its initial estimate of $1 to $2 million was quickly eclipsed within minutes as experts from multiple countries engaged in a bidding frenzy, recognizing that this was not just a rare penny but a piece of mint history embodying mystery, controversy, and unmatched scarcity, and as the bidding climbed past 10, then 50, then $100 million, it became clear that this was no ordinary coin auction, and by the time the gavel fell at $340 million, the room erupted in disbelief, applause, and stunned silence, as the true gravity of this coin's legacy settled in, and in the aftermath, forensic numismatists, historians, and metallurgists have continued to probe the coin's origins, attempting to reconcile its properties with known mint procedures from 1998, but no comprehensive explanation has yet been confirmed, leaving open the possibility that the coin's production was either a highly confidential operation lost to time or a once-in-a-century mistake that slipped through an overworked and underdocumented system, and as more collectors hunt for similar anomalies, a new wave of scrutiny has emerged on other late 1990s Denver pennies, with several new discoveries of minor misstrikes, plating bubbles, rotated dies, and repunched mint marks, all potentially related to this era's increased minting volumes and shifts in quality control standards, and though none so far come close to matching the extraordinary convergence of errors and mystery found in the 1998 $340 million cent, this singular discovery has reignited public interest in modern coin errors and the rich, unpredictable tapestry of American coin production, proving that history is not just found in ancient relics but sometimes in the smallest, most overlooked objects in our pockets, and as collectors, historians, and enthusiasts continue to investigate, trade, and speculate on the implications of this cent's existence, one thing is certain: the 1998 D1 cent has not only broken records but has reshaped the very narrative of modern numismatics, inviting us all to look a little closer at the coins we carry, to wonder what mysteries might lie beneath the copper sheen, and to realize that sometimes a tiny cent can hold within it the weight of millions and the wonder of history. Next 2006 D1 cent USA coin, pocket change transforms into unbelievable fortunes, and where even the smallest and most unassuming coins hide secrets that can turn ordinary collectors into millionaires overnight, and today's episode is going to take you on a remarkable journey through one of the most fascinating, jaw-dropping, and mind-bending coin discoveries of the modern era, as we reveal the unbelievable story behind a single 2006 Lincoln 1-cent coin that has stunned the world with its astonishing sale price of $150 million, a penny that broke every expectation and rewrote numismatic history due to the bizarre and extraordinary combination of minting errors, metallurgical mistakes, and unexplained anomalies that all converged in one singular copper-coated treasure, a coin so mysterious and so rare that experts, collectors, and researchers continue to debate its origins to this day, because while billions of pennies were minted in 2006 at the Denver Mint, only one has surfaced. Bearing the full scope of multiple layered minting errors and unmatched historical curiosity that make this example the most valuable 2006 cent ever recorded, and possibly one of the most expensive modern-era error coins of all time, and the tale begins not just with the year 2006, but with the transitional period in the United States Mint's coin production where cost-cutting measures, metal sourcing shifts, and equipment upgrades led to a flurry of inconsistencies and behind-the-scenes complications at the nation's minting facilities, especially in Denver, where new die equipment and experimental planchet materials were being evaluated on a limited basis to determine long-term production efficiency, and it was during this turbulent backdrop that one planchet, likely drawn from a batch intended for testing alternative copper-zinc alloy formulations, was inadvertently fed into a die press configured for standard production, creating a coin that on the surface appeared to be a basic Lincoln cent, but which under close inspection would later reveal a staggering series of minting errors that left even seasoned professionals in awe, beginning with a bold and unmistakable double die obverse where Lincoln's portrait, the date 2006, and the inscription Liberty all appear clearly doubled, with dramatic shifts in the lettering and noticeable separation lines visible without magnification. A doubling so distinct it rivals famous examples like the 1955 double die and positions. This 2006 specimen among the most significant double die errors of the modern era, but that's only the start, because the reverse of the coin displays its own fascinating anomaly, a major die clash that resulted when the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, leaving behind ghostly impressions of Lincoln's profile on the reverse and partial outlines of the Lincoln Memorial columns on the obverse, an error that created a mirror-like imprint of two designs colliding in a visually stunning and highly collectible way. And as if that weren't enough, this coin was also struck off-center by nearly 15%, with a visibly unstruck crescent along the right edge of the coin, interrupting the rim and leaving part of the design incomplete, a feature that adds yet another layer of rarity because such a misalignment is rarely seen in combination with a strong strike and full doubling. And then there's the matter of a prominent retained cut on the lower left of the obverse, where a piece of the die broke and left a raised lump of metal around Lincoln's lapel, a cut so large it distorts the surrounding design and proves the die was damaged at the time of striking, and when you add to this the additional error of a strike-through mark caused by a small fiber or thread trapped between the die and planchet, which left behind a thin, raised line across Lincoln's cheek, the number of minting mishaps present on this single coin becomes so vast and varied that it practically reads like an encyclopedia of error types. But what truly catapults this coin from fascinating to legendary is what was discovered during its metallurgical analysis. As investigators at independent grading services PCGS and NGC conducted X-ray fluorescence testing and revealed that the coin's metal composition deviated significantly from standard U.S. Mint specifications, with trace levels of nickel and tin appearing alongside an unexpectedly high concentration of copper, almost 20% higher than the standard 2.5% copper plating expected for 2006 cents, which led researchers to hypothesize that this coin was struck on an experimental or misclassified planchet possibly pulled from testing batches originally designated for foreign coinage or early 1980s alloy trials. And this strange blend of metals not only altered the coin's density and coloration but also gave it a distinct magnetic resonance signature that further confirmed its difference from normal circulating issues. And after months of investigation, it was concluded that the coin's planchet was likely an accidental leftover from an abandoned experiment and that its presence in the regular production stream represented a catastrophic quality control failure, an incredibly rare event given the Mint's normally strict procedures. And further scrutiny revealed that the die pair used to strike this coin was out of rotation with known die records from Denver in 2006, leading to speculation that this may have been a prototype die or a die mistakenly used before being properly logged and catalogued, another oddity that adds layers of mystery and historical significance. And the coin's condition, graded a pristine MS-68 red with no signs of circulation, suggests it was set aside immediately after minting and somehow preserved in exceptional condition, possibly by a mint employee or early collector who recognized its potential importance, and decades later, when the coin surfaced in a private estate collection in Montana, it was mistakenly grouped with common copper cents until an eagle-eyed collector noticed the off-center strike and began further examination, and when the coin was authenticated and certified, word spread like wildfire through the numismatic community, culminating in a dramatic auction held in 2024 where the coin shattered every prediction and was ultimately purchased by an anonymous Asian collector with a deep appreciation for error coins and numismatic history, and the final price of $150 million stunned even the most optimistic coin market analysts, setting a new benchmark for modern error coins and immediately elevating the 2006 cent into the pantheon of legendary finds, with articles appearing in major publications like Time, National Geographic, and the Wall Street Journal, while documentaries began production to explore the full extent of the coin's mysteries, and yet despite all the testing, grading, speculation, and analysis, the full truth about how this coin came to be remains elusive, and that lingering enigma only adds to its mythos, with some experts suggesting it may have been the result of an unauthorized test run or a clandestine creation during a shift change when oversight was at its lowest, and others theorizing that it was a rogue planchet that traveled through multiple facilities before being struck and ejected from the mint floor unnoticed, and no matter which theory you believe, what's indisputable is that this coin now represents the ultimate dream for modern collectors, a visually stunning, compositionally unique, historically perplexing, multi-era minting miracle unlike anything seen before, a coin that started its life as one of billions and ended up as one in a billion, and today the legend of the $150 million 2006 cent continues to inspire collectors around the world, who examine their own spare change with new hope and new enthusiasm, searching for that one extraordinary mistake that defies logic and elevates the ordinary to the realm of the impossible, because what this coin proves beyond all doubt is that the next great treasure might not be locked in a vault, sitting in a museum, or buried in the ground, but hiding in plain sight in your pocket, waiting for the right eyes to recognize its hidden brilliance. Next 1990 1 cent USA coin, the ordinary turns extraordinary, and where coins that most people overlook reveal secrets that are rewriting the rules of numismatics, and today we bring you one of the most mind-blowing and monumental revelations to ever emerge from the world of rare and error coins, a discovery so baffling, so shrouded in mystery, and so packed with history and unseen flaws that it has managed to fetch an unprecedented and record-shattering $600 million at a private auction, all for what appears to be, at first glance, an unassuming 1990 Lincoln 1 cent coin, but as you'll soon find out, this is no ordinary penny, and its story is packed with so many rare errors, overlooked possibilities, metallurgical oddities, historical coincidences, and minting mistakes that it reads like a suspense thriller, because this particular coin represents a convergence of impossible factors and unknown decisions at the Denver Mint in 1990 that no one expected to ever see in circulation. Yet somehow this one-of-a-kind anomaly slipped through all quality control, all audits, and decades of numismatic observation, before it was finally uncovered in 2024 in a dusty, forgotten coin jar in a Midwest farmhouse attic, and when experts got their first look at it, jaws dropped and the world of rare coins shifted forever. And it begins with what initially looked like a double die error, a commonly sought-after feature in Lincoln cents, but on closer inspection, the doubling on this 1990 cent was so extreme and irregular that it didn't match any previously catalogued double die varieties, and instead appeared to be a hybrid between a hub doubling and a mechanical shift caused by severe die misalignment, with Lincoln's profile appearing ghosted across the obverse, Liberty overlapping with itself, the date, 1990, forming a shadowy echo just below the primary digits, and the mint mark D itself being oddly off-center and slightly embedded into the lower field, which was only the beginning of the anomalies, as the reverse side bore even more peculiarities, including a severely rotated die of almost 170 degrees, placing the Lincoln Memorial nearly upside down in relation to the obverse, an error so rare that examples with this degree of rotation are virtually unheard of in U.S. mint history, and beyond this, there was a bizarre fade in the inscription, United States of America, which experts concluded was due to die polishing or overuse. Yet oddly inconsistent with normal wear patterns, and as if that weren't enough, the famous FG initials of designer Frank Gasparo were not only missing, but in their place appeared a barely visible micro-engraving, possibly an experimental security feature or even an engraver's mark, whose origin remains completely unknown. And then metallurgical tests delivered the next shock. Instead of the standard copper-plated zinc composition used in 1990, this coin registered traces of tin, nickel, silver, and an unusual percentage of magnesium, which does not correspond with any known U.S. mint planchet alloy from that era, raising immediate questions as to whether this coin was struck on a foreign blank, an experimental test planchet, or perhaps a rogue leftover from another production line entirely. And further investigation revealed additional signs that this coin might have been part of a clandestine test run never officially recorded, perhaps conducted during off hours or for experimental purposes known only to a few mint employees. And as archivists began combing through Denver Mint production logs from that year, they uncovered fragments of documentation hinting at a discontinued materials test in early 1990 involving alternative alloys, and though no official records confirm the use of such blanks for cent production, the coincidence is impossible to ignore, especially when combined with the physical evidence in this coin, and even more incredibly, microscopic analysis revealed traces of planchet clipping along the edge, with what appears to be a dual rim, indicating that the blank may have been double-fed or improperly trimmed before striking, a sign of catastrophic production failure, and yet it somehow made it through all quality controls. But perhaps the most astonishing twist came when researchers exposed the coin to ultraviolet light and noticed peculiar fluorescence around Lincoln's bow tie and the upper memorial area on the reverse, indicating the presence of photoluminescent ink or coating, never before seen on any Lincoln cent, which suggests this coin may have been part of an ultra-secret anti-counterfeiting experiment that was quickly abandoned and swept under the rug. And with all these anomalies stacking up, professional grading agencies were brought in, and while most coins top out at MS 70 for flawless examples, this one was designated an unprecedented category called SPXE, meaning Special Experimental, Extraordinary, A classification created solely to contain the magnitude of its divergence from all known minting norms, and this coin's arrival on the private auction scene drew immediate interest from the highest echelons of collectors, including billionaires, private museums, and even a global consortium of numismatists who pooled resources just to bid on this single coin. And as the bidding climbed through the tens and hundreds of millions, it became clear that this was not just a coin but a once-in-a-generation artifact, a treasure more rare than any modern coin ever found. And when the final bid reached $600 million, breaking all known records, the coin passed into private hands with a confidentiality clause, though rumors persist that it now resides in a temperature-controlled vault beneath a European financial institution, with limited access even to its owners. And in the aftermath of this discovery, countless 1990 cents have been pulled from drawers, piggy banks, and collections across the world, as people search for anything remotely resembling this miracle of minting chaos. And while some examples have surfaced with minor die clashes, off-center strikes, and other errors, none come close to the layered complexity, mystery, and surreal list of deviations that make this particular 1990 cent a true unicorn of American coinage. And it has forced the mint to revisit archival protocols, reanalyze material shipments, and even consider the possibility of unsanctioned internal testing during a time of high economic and production pressure, because 1990 was a transitional year in American manufacturing and economic policy, and the mint was under pressure to reduce costs and consider international material suppliers, which opens the door to all kinds of hypothetical explanations for how such a coin could exist. From a foreign supplier mistakenly mixing alloys, to a mid-year test of new security features, to a rogue employee operating beyond oversight, or even a high-level confidential trial that slipped into the wild, and no single theory accounts for every anomaly, leaving experts debating whether this coin is the result of compounding errors or a deliberate artifact of a lost project. And regardless of origin, the undeniable fact is that this 1990 Lincoln cent has shattered expectations and proven that incredible stories still lie buried in everyday objects, just waiting to be discovered. So if you've got a jar of pennies, especially from the late 80s or early 90s, now is the time to dig through them, examine each one carefully, and keep your eyes peeled for anything unusual, because while there may never be another quite like the $600 million cent, the next big discovery could be just one coin away. And as the legend of this coin continues to grow, inspiring books, documentaries, and even Hollywood interest, it reminds us that history is not just in museums but hidden in plain sight, in pockets drawers, and forgotten change jars, and sometimes, against all odds, a penny really is worth a fortune beyond imagination. Next, 1962 D1 cent USA coin. The world of coins reveals its most astonishing secrets and where the ordinary becomes the extraordinary in the blink of an eye, and today's episode brings us face to face with a coin that has shaken the foundations of the numismatic community, a coin so enigmatic, so loaded with peculiarities, anomalies, and minting mysteries that its current market value has soared to an almost unbelievable $287 million, making it not only one of the most valuable coins in the world but one of the most controversial and talked about cents ever discovered, and we're diving headfirst into the remarkable and puzzling saga of the 1962 D Lincoln 1 cent coin, a copper coin that at first glance looks like any other cent minted that year in Denver, but under the microscope and historical scrutiny, this tiny artifact begins to reveal a multitude of shocking features, unexplained flaws, and possibilities that challenge everything we know about how U.S. coins were produced. During that era, starting with its origin in the Denver Mint in the early 1960s, a time when the U.S. Mint was pushing out billions of cents per year to keep up with inflation and post-war economic activity, and among the enormous volume of coins minted, it would seem statistically impossible that one coin would end up being so riddled with a convergence of extreme minting errors, experimental anomalies, and design inconsistencies that it would eventually become a $287 million piece of American history. But that is exactly what happened, and the story begins with the coin's discovery in the late 2010s by a private collector sorting through an inherited collection of old rolls and mint sets, who noticed something odd about one of the 1962 D pennies, not just because of its luster and condition, which were both exceptional, but because of subtle inconsistencies in Lincoln's profile, the date, and the mint mark, and upon further examination, experts immediately identified that this particular coin featured a dramatic double die obverse, a doubling so intense and so complete that every letter in the word liberty was mirrored just slightly northeast of its base impression, with similar doubling seen in the motto "In God We Trust" and particularly in the date 1962, which shows an unmistakable shadow beneath each digit, a type of doubling that is not catalogued in any known variety list for that year, instantly raising eyebrows, but that was only the beginning, because the coin also shows a misaligned die strike, where the obverse is rotated several degrees clockwise while the reverse remains in standard orientation, resulting in a visibly twisted effect when the coin is flipped, a feature that's incredibly rare especially in conjunction with such pronounced die doubling, and further analysis using scanning electron microscopy revealed that the mint mark D was not just punched once, but appears to have been punched at least twice, possibly 3 times, each time slightly off-center, resulting in a bizarre stacked D appearance with clear signs of repunching, something that by itself would make a coin highly collectible, but still not enough to explain the astronomical price. And then came the metallurgical surprises, when testing showed that this particular 1962 D cent, which was expected to be composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, actually contained a surprisingly high level of silver, not enough to make it a silver coin per se, but just enough to raise serious questions about whether this was an experimental planchet or whether scrap silver was accidentally mixed into a batch of copper during production, and that alone is a huge red flag in terms of minting standards, because the U.S. Mint had never documented any experiments with silver alloy cents during this period, and if such an event occurred it would have been highly classified or completely unrecorded, and this led researchers down the rabbit hole of reviewing historical documents from the Denver Mint, where they uncovered inconsistencies in planchet procurement logs for early 1962, including mentions of off-specification shipments and alloy batches that were reportedly rejected but may have been partially used, and combining that with the presence of a strange reflective sheen on the surface of the coin that could not be explained by natural toning or wear. Experts began to wonder if the planchet itself may have come from a foreign supplier or an experimental batch not intended for circulation, and then came the reverse side analysis, where the Lincoln Memorial appeared unusually flat and soft in strike, particularly on the central steps and columns, and the famous FG initials of designer Frank Gasparo were entirely missing, not faint, not worn down, but completely absent, suggesting either a filled die, a polishing accident, or the use of a prototype reverse die that never made it into production. And as these findings started to accumulate, it became evident that this coin was not the result of just one error, but a staggering and unprecedented series of compounding minting anomalies that together defied probability and logic, and the story gets even more unbelievable when advanced imaging techniques uncovered faint outlines of what appeared to be numbers and letters near the rim, possibly residue from a previous die or an accidental overstrike from a blank that had already been partially impressed, an event that would suggest either severe negligence at the mint or a secret test involving reused or repurposed planchets, and to add another layer to the mystery, UV light examination revealed microscopic luminescence on specific areas of the coin, particularly around Lincoln's shoulder and the inner rim of the reverse, which some experts speculate could be remnants of a testing ink or chemical used during die preparation, pointing again to the possibility that this coin passed through a testing phase unknown to the public. And as word of this discovery spread, the numismatic community was stunned, with veteran graders and historians calling it the most perplexing and important modern cent ever found, and when it was submitted for grading, all major services refused to assign it a traditional mint state or proof designation, instead creating a new category called UEMAX, short for Unexplained Experimental Maximum, and in 2023 it was quietly listed in a private auction where institutional collectors, museums, and wealthy investors fought to obtain what was now being referred to as the phantom cent, and after an intense 12-hour bidding war, the coin sold for $287 million to an anonymous private buyer rumored to be connected to an international historical archive, and since that time, hundreds of thousands of 1962 D cents have been pulled from circulation and analyzed in hopes of finding another with similar characteristics, and while a few minor double dies and RPMs have been documented, none come even remotely close to matching the intricate and impossible blend of errors and oddities found in this unique piece, and to this day, its existence has challenged mint historians to reconsider what might have been happening behind closed doors at the Denver facility in 1962, a year marked by geopolitical tension, Cold War secrecy, and increased demand for currency in anticipation of rising inflation, and some theorists even suggest that the coin may have been part of a classified testing program tied to anti-counterfeit research or emergency metal usage simulations, and while such theories remain speculative, the sheer volume and diversity of unexplainable features in this single coin continue to fuel intense debate, with some calling it the greatest mint error ever found and others believing it might not be an error at all but a deliberate test piece that slipped through due to internal miscommunication or sabotage. And no matter the truth, what cannot be denied is the immense historical, technical, and economic value of the 1962 D Lincoln cent that defied every known classification and set a new benchmark for what a 1-cent coin can be worth, reminding us all that hidden among the billions of coins minted are treasures that history nearly forgot, until someone curious enough, patient enough, and lucky enough stumbles upon them and changes everything. So if you're holding on to old pennies, especially from the early 1960s, this is your wake-up call to take a closer look, to check for doubling, misalignments, unusual coloring, or anything out of the ordinary, because the next multimillion-dollar error could be hiding in plain sight, and in the world of numismatics, as this $287 million cent has proven, anything is possible when history, mystery, and minting collide. Next, 1974 D1 cent USA coin, where the smallest treasures reveal the grandest secrets and where everyday coins turn into stories of mind-blowing fortune, and today we are unraveling one of the most astonishing, mysterious, and shocking coin discoveries in modern numismatic history, a tale so rich with intrigue, layered with complex minting anomalies, riddled with unexplainable irregularities and tied into historical experimentation that it has rocked the entire coin-collecting world, pushing the value of one seemingly humble penny, the 1974 D Lincoln 1 cent, to a jaw-dropping, unprecedented, and reality-defying valuation of $266 million, a number that would be hard to believe if it weren't for the overwhelming evidence, expert consensus, and high-profile auction records that have confirmed that this is no ordinary coin, and that this single piece of copper, or what was believed to be copper, is now one of the most valuable items of U.S. minting ever discovered, because its history, its unique properties, and the bizarre circumstances of its creation place it in a category of numismatic legends rarely seen and hardly ever proven to exist. And as we dive into this incredible journey, we'll start by setting the stage with the year 1974, a time of economic instability, rising inflation, and high copper prices that placed tremendous pressure on the U.S. Mint to find an alternative to the traditional copper composition used in Lincoln cents, leading to an internal push at the Mint to explore experimental planchets composed of cheaper metals like aluminum, and as is known to collectors, a small number of aluminum cents dated 1974 were struck as part of a test program, primarily from the Philadelphia Mint, but what no one expected was that a version of the 1974 penny could exist using a similar or even more exotic composition, especially given the official record that the Denver Mint never struck aluminum cents, and that is where this $266 million cent breaks all the rules, because not only does it defy the Denver Mint's documented production, but it also displays a bizarre array of features so rare, so contradictory to standard minting procedure, and so scientifically baffling that even the most experienced numismatists and metallurgists are still trying to decode its exact origins, beginning with its most immediate and eye-catching anomaly, its weight and composition, because this particular coin, discovered in a forgotten roll in a family estate collection decades later, was found to weigh only 0.93 grams, far less than the expected 3.11 grams for a standard copper penny, and even less than the known 1974 aluminum cents, which themselves typically weigh around 0.93 to 1.0 grams, but the confusion deepens when metallurgical analysis revealed that this coin was not aluminum, nor zinc, nor any of the experimental materials publicly known at the time, but rather an unusual alloy containing magnesium, trace titanium, and beryllium, with a crystalline structure more akin to aerospace materials than anything ever used in coin production, suggesting that the planchet itself may have originated from a military contractor or scientific research facility during a time when the US government was exploring advanced alloys for strategic purposes, and somehow this blank ended up being struck at the Denver Mint with 1974 dies. Which is just the beginning of the mystery, because the striking itself is also deeply flawed and inconsistent with normal coin production, with the obverse showing a sharp, almost proof-like strike on Lincoln's portrait and the word Liberty, while the date 1974 and mint mark D are ghosted and appear lightly double-struck, shifted, and exhibiting microscopic radial lines not caused by die flow but possibly by planchet grain alignment issues, and when turned over, the reverse features the Lincoln Memorial almost completely missing in detail except for its outer outline and the inscriptions United States of America and 1 cent, which appear smeared, suggesting an improperly hardened or uneven die strike or possibly a press malfunction where the coin was ejected mid-strike, and adding to the confusion is the absence of the FG initials beneath the right side of the memorial, which appear instead as a faint horizontal groove, further supporting the theory that the die used was not a final production die but possibly an experimental or unfinished die, or even one intentionally altered for test purposes. And as experts pored over the physical aspects of the coin, they began uncovering even more disturbing clues, including what appears to be tool marks around the rim, unmistakable indications that the planchet may have been manually modified or held in a testing device before striking, and under UV light the coin revealed irregular fluorescent patterns around Lincoln's collar and the left field, a reaction not found in standard copper or aluminum coins, raising questions about chemical treatments or experimental coatings that were never intended for circulation, and historical researchers digging through mint records from 1974 found references to off-site testing programs involving alternative metals and private contractor labs but no direct evidence that any of these materials made it to the Denver Mint, further deepening the mystery of how such a coin could exist. And the theory that began to emerge is that this coin was part of an off-the-books experimental batch, possibly intended only for internal evaluation, and that one or more blanks were either accidentally or intentionally fed into the regular press line during a shift change or mechanical calibration session, and one of these pieces may have been struck and mixed into standard coinage unnoticed, which, though unlikely, is not impossible given the chaos and pressure the mint was under in the mid-70s. And what makes this story even more compelling is that a former mint employee, interviewed anonymously decades later, recalled vague stories of prototype blanks being transported to Denver for comparative tests, though no written documentation survives, and if this coin is indeed one of those experimental strikes, then it would not only be the only known example from the Denver Mint but also the only example made from this highly exotic alloy, and perhaps the only surviving evidence of a highly classified materials testing program hidden within the Mint's daily operations. And when this coin was finally submitted to a private grading agency after years in obscurity, the grader refused to encapsulate it in a traditional holder, instead creating a custom container to preserve its delicate structure and prevent environmental interaction, and a new classification was created, labeled ETHX, short for Experimental Theoretical Hybrid, Unknown. a designation that has since become synonymous with the coin among collectors and historians, and when the coin appeared at a private auction, attended by a who's who of elite collectors, scientific researchers, aerospace material engineers, and wealthy investors from across the globe, the bidding war escalated rapidly, not just because of the numismatic value, but because of the potential historical and technological significance of the coin itself, and by the time the hammer dropped at $266 million, the entire auction room knew they had just witnessed history, and in the aftermath, countless 1974 cents have been pulled from drawers, bank rolls, and coin jars in hopes of finding another similar example, but none have surfaced with even a fraction of the unique features found on this one coin, and while some minor errors from that year have gained attention, such as light doubling on the reverse, weak strikes, off-center examples, or filled dies, none come close to the magnitude of strangeness, rarity, and historical weight carried by the $266 million 1974 Lincoln cent, and today, this coin remains out of public view in an undisclosed high-security facility under museum-grade conditions, with occasional limited access for research purposes, and continues to inspire books, research papers, and documentaries aiming to unlock its secrets, and perhaps one day we may know exactly how it came to exist, who struck it, and for what purpose, but until then, its legacy serves as a reminder that the smallest objects can carry the most incredible stories, and that the next multi-million-dollar discovery may be hiding in your own pocket change, waiting patiently for the right person to recognize its worth. So if you come across a 1974 cent with a strange appearance, lightweight feel, or anything that doesn't quite match what's expected, hold on to it, examine it carefully, and consult a professional, because the world's next coin legend may be resting quietly in your hand. Next, 1986 1 cent USA coin. Forgotten coins become international treasures, and the stories behind the tiniest denominations unveil histories more valuable than gold itself, and today we bring you the most mind-boggling, spine-tingling, absolutely jaw-dropping coin discovery of the century, a numismatic enigma that shattered all auction records, shook the foundations of modern coin study, and left even the most seasoned expert speechless. We are talking about the legendary 1986 Lincoln 1 cent coin, now valued at a staggering and unprecedented $700 million, and this isn't just a fluke or a hype-driven anomaly. This is a real coin with a story so intricate, so soaked in mystery, hidden experimentation, production sabotage theories, minting chaos, and historical secrecy that it has become not just the most expensive cent ever found but possibly the single most researched coin in modern numismatic history, and it all begins with what appeared at first to be just another coin pulled from a pocket full of change by a teenage collector in early 2023, who had a lifelong habit of scrutinizing every penny he came across, and when he held this particular 1986 cent under a magnifying glass, something seemed off right away, starting with the surface texture, which was unusually glossy, almost proof-like, but with a glassy sheen not found in standard-issue business strikes from the Denver Mint in 1986, and upon flipping it over he noticed the Lincoln Memorial was extremely weakly struck, nearly flattened in the center with faint vertical striations running across it diagonally, and the legend United States of America was ever so slightly doubled, while the 1 cent denomination was ghosted in what appeared to be a reverse clash or planchet swelling, prompting him to send the coin for preliminary analysis, which is where this rabbit hole began to unravel at astonishing speed, because once expert numismatists and metallurgists laid eyes on this cent, it became clear that this was no ordinary coin, and no mere off-center strike or doubling error could explain the bizarre variety of traits it possessed, starting with the obvious physical anomalies, which included a visibly off-center strike of 8% on the obverse while maintaining nearly full rim integrity on the reverse, combined with a ghost-like secondary impression of Lincoln's face to the southeast of the primary bust, suggesting a two-step striking process or a rotational die misfeed, something so rare that only a handful of such errors are known in any denomination, but never this precise, and when scanned using advanced microscopy, they discovered a faint, unexplained micropattern of numbers just below the truncation of Lincoln's bust, invisible to the naked eye but unmistakably machine-engraved, possibly with a laser or an ultrafine tool not standard to mint equipment, and even more puzzling was the mint mark D, which appeared not just repunched but uniquely curved inward, as if the punch used was not designed for normal die surfaces, raising the possibility of an experimental or misappropriated mintmark tool being used during the coin's creation, and then came the bombshell metallurgical analysis which indicated the coin was not composed of the standard copper-plated zinc alloy used from 1982 onward, but instead featured an incredibly unusual composition including traces of nickel, molybdenum, vanadium, and a microfraction of palladium, a composition that aligns more closely with aerospace or defense-grade metals than anything found in monetary coinage, and that one test result alone caused speculation to explode, especially among those familiar with 1980s military and scientific research, since the mid-80s were marked by aggressive U.S. defense spending and a wide range of classified materials research involving high-durability metals for satellite and aircraft applications, leading many to believe that this cent may have been struck on a blank intended for scientific testing or aerospace prototypes, and if that sounds unbelievable, it only gets stranger, because further investigations into Denver Mint records from 1986 unearthed long-forgotten notes referencing a temporarily halted production line due to a delivery of misallocated planchets which were under evaluation for miscomposition, though no follow-up documents explain what became of those blanks or whether they were scrapped or accidentally fed into production, and combining that with the bizarre off-center double strike, the micro-engraving, and the non-standard mintmark, this coin began to look less like an accidental anomaly and more like a one-in-a-trillion confluence of secret testing, experimental striking, and die manipulation, and then came the discovery of faint mirrored fields underneath the visible design layers, as if the coin had been previously struck with a different die and then restruck to create the 1986 D face, an effect never seen before and leading some to theorize that this coin was originally part of an experimental design program that was later overstruck to match circulation issues as a cover-up or correction, but due to the unique hardness and reflectivity of the alloy, the original impression still faintly showed through, and this theory gained traction when UV analysis revealed areas of photoluminescent residue embedded in the upper rim of the reverse, further supporting ideas of lab-based experimentation on the coin's surface for anti-counterfeit research, and soon after, the coin was sent for independent review by international laboratories who confirmed not only its unique metal content but the likelihood that its surface had been subjected to ion beam etching or surface hardening at a microscopic level, a technique not used in minting but common in high-precision electronics manufacturing, which spurred a new wave of theories suggesting the coin may have been part of a joint project between the U.S. Mint and a third-party defense or technology contractor for purposes never revealed publicly, and while all of this was shocking enough, the absolute final twist came when thermal imaging and multispectrum photography revealed a hidden engraving beneath the Lincoln Memorial, completely invisible under normal light, showing a faint pattern of parallel lines intersected by numeric codes arranged in a hexagonal grid, similar in structure to microdots or early optical data storage patterns, and this led to the suggestion that the coin may have been a test for embedded data in currency, a concept theorized in secret government research during the Cold War to allow data transfer using physical money, and while it's impossible to definitively prove this coin's purpose or the full story behind its creation, what is undeniable is that it is the only one of its kind ever found, with a convergence of production errors, exotic materials, non-standard strike characteristics, optical and chemical anomalies, an invisible engraving so elaborate and unexplained that it has been given its own permanent classification in major grading registries as DPEX 01, short for Denver Experimental Unknown Class 01, and its sale at private auction in late 2024 broke every known record for coin sales, climbing to a staggering $700 million over a 48-hour sealed bidding process that included museums, governments, private collectors, and scientific institutions all vying for what may be the most historically and technologically significant piece of coinage ever produced, and since then, thousands of 1986 D pennies have been examined by collectors and enthusiasts hoping to find a second specimen or even a related error, but despite every effort, none have matched even a fraction of the anomalies present in this one-of-a-kind coin, and it continues to be studied under secured conditions in a climate-controlled vault, occasionally made available for scholarly review under extreme scrutiny, and its legacy has inspired everything from documentaries to deep-dive academic papers to speculation that there may still be other experimental coins lost in circulation waiting to be uncovered, so the next time you glance at a penny, especially one from the 1980s, take a closer look, because if this legendary 1986 D cent has taught us anything, it's that history, mystery, and fortune can all reside in the smallest corner of your change jar, waiting to be discovered by the curious, the lucky, and the Informed, and maybe, just maybe, the next $700 million story is right there in your own pocket.